to In-Laws and Crime. I'm Ashley.
I am Megan. This is In-Laws and Crime. On an evening.
We are doing an evening episode.
Evening episode. We haven't done one of these since the lake house times.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are.
I told Ashley I almost stopped and got a bottle of wine, but I did not.
You should have.
I know.
I would have poured you up.
I know. I did not. I have to drive back home after this.
Well, so
there's that. But we are back. We're here for part 2.
I need this part 2.
Insane story. Just an insane story. Part 2 is even more insane. So everybody buckle up. But before that, I think we have crime files.
I do have a few crime files.
We talked about a secret crime file that we'll never tell any of y'all. And now we'll tell you these.
Yep. Okay. So one of the things was Damon Borens was just sentenced to 18 years in prison for running a prostitution ring.
I saw this. Okay. Now, yes. Now it's clicking. Yes.
Yes.
I do remember that.
So an undercover cop made the arrangement online, and then Damien showed up to drop the girl off.
Wow.
And that's when they arrested him.
Goodbye, Damien.
Yes, his 18 years for that. And then I'm pretty sure we all heard this, that there was a body found next to the Walmart on Highway 64 and Loop 323.
Yes.
Insane.
Yeah.
They don't expect foul play, but my God, a body was found.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
And then the other one we had was there was a body found.
Another body.
Yes, but this was closer. Oh, this was actually kind of over the border. I-20 runs right through our area.
Yeah.
And it'll take you all the way to Louisiana. And this body was found just on the other side of Louisiana. And it was the body of a male expected to be around 40 years old. And the mowing crews discovered it.
Yeah. So you know how you always see, if you're East Texas area, I-20, they always have the mowers, those big, huge mowers come by like every month, every other month and mow. And I guess they were mowing along and found a body.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And then Jacob told me this. I looked, I couldn't find anything. It may not be anything at all. But last week, Jacob was going to our lake house in Caddo. And when he was on the way there, he was on a back road that he doesn't usually take. But he was on a back road, and it's where trucks are moving or hauling rock or dirt or something across the road, just back and forth from two different sites. And so he's seen this rock quarry or whatever it is that the guys are moving this stuff from. And he's seen it a couple times. But he said the last time he rolled by, the trucks had stopped. There were multiple sheriff's vehicles out there, and there was an investigative unit out.
Shoot.
And all the crime scene tape.
Oh, shoot.
So I don't know if
another body
remains were found and they
gosh.
stopped for that to be investigated, or if something else happened. But anyway, I don't know. I tried really hard to find it, but I couldn't find anything on it other than his eyewitness account.
And that's live from, and I do know we have a farm file.
Oh, we bless it.
Ashley has a farm file that literally just happened about an hour before we started recording.
So last night, it was about midnight, and Jacob and I let Apache out for the night. And he's a hunter. I don't know what part of him and that mixed breed is the hunter, but he is. So we let him out. He did his thing, and he came back in, and he laid down on his bed. And then all of a sudden, we hear this.
Oh my
and
God.
Jacob and I panic, and we both jump up and we flip on the lights, because we were just watching late night TV and movies and stuff. We flip on the lights, and there's this little ball of fur, this little bundle on his bed, unharmed, but there. And I'm gonna tell you right now, unfortunately, my dog has literally swallowed whole squirrels. He does not play around.
And he's a big boy too.
Yeah. And so the fact that he brought this little baby in
and just laid
it down on his bed. Anyway, so Jacob and I panic. We scoop this little thing up and we put it in a little towel, and I take it into my greenhouse, because my greenhouse is going to be the warmest place, safe, away from all critters and everything, and not cold in the house, because we drop it down at night.
Me too, girl.
And anyway, so the baby survived. Little baby squirrel survived all night long. And I did all this research online about what to do with it. And it was like, put it at the base of the tree. And my yard is nothing but trees all the way around. So I don't know where he picked it out because we didn't see it. But I have a feeling I knew what tree it came out of because then a family nests in this tree every year or every spring, summer. And so I have one of those like old Borden milk crates, the plastic ones.
Yeah.
Made a little nest, and like Jacob, as far as he could reach up, like hammered this thing up into the tree. And then with his turtle box speaker, I played like distressed baby squirrel sounds for hours today, trying to get the mom to come out. And then I researched that the moms come out like as soon as the sun comes up, they come out and they forage for food so they can feed their babies. And then they don't come back out again until like sunset.
Yeah.
So all afternoon I saw no squirrels. And so I finally broke down and I reached out to the rehabilitation girl that Megan sent me. And we had arranged to meet so she could care for this little baby squirrel. And I had checked on it about 30 minutes before we were going to leave. And the little thing he was stretching around in his little bed, and he was clearly looking for food.
Poor thing.
And then I go back out to move him into a smaller container so I can take her to this little rehabilitation girl. And plus he was dead. And my heart broke. It so broke. Sad. I have like a sock full of rice that I've been heating up, trying to keep it warm. And I'd made a nest of like just all the leaves from the trees around the yard.
She had a bowl of seeds trying to entice.
I had a bowl of seeds in there trying to entice the mom.
We'll post the picture she sent me.
It was, I tried so hard. And then I was so sad.
R.I.P. Gosh.
I was so sad. And the girl was so sweet. She's like, don't beat yourself up. She's like, they're so delicate when they're that small.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
But it did not hurt. It did not help my heart. I'm an animal lover.
I know. And the little, I told y'all this story not too long ago.
About the bat?
No, well, about the baby bunnies.
Oh, yes, the bunnies.
Yeah. I really should have just called her right then and grabbed the baby bunnies and just...
Well, that's what I told her. I said, I will never wait again. I was really trying to give the mama the benefit of the doubt that she would come back and, grab her little baby and take it back up into the nest. But next time I won't wait. Yeah. I'll just immediately call a rehabber. And
well, now that we've really killed y'all's spirit.
Oh, but I do have an update from my friend Eve. She said,
good.
Yeah, from her little babies. Hold on. I messaged her earlier and I was like, how are your baby birds? Because she was having trouble with them falling out of the nest. And she said that they've flown the coop.
Yay.
That they're good.
Okay, there we go, everyone.
Yeah. So
there's a happy updated farm fall.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just used the box to catch them as they fell out, and they just replaced them back, and then they flew away eventually.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. Good job, Eve. Good job, Eve.
Did much better than myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Okay, part 2.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so this is part 2 of the Trinity River Massacre. If you have not listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1 because you'll be lost, and it's a lot. So there's a lot of details in this case. So again, the book that I read for this whole thing was called The Trinity River Massacre, a Factual Account by Terry McKnight. And so that's my only reference for this whole case. So, if you went back and listened, we're at the point now where Deputy Dover sees that white car coming straight for him. And he initially thinks that it's the killers coming back to finish him off, but he quickly realized that it was Deputy McCurley, and then another deputy pulling up, which when I read that part in the book,
did your whole body just take a huge sigh of relief?
Lord, yes.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, again, I'll probably say this multiple times. The fact that this has not been made into a movie, like, what are we doing? Hello, Hollywood. Anyway, so that's where we're at. But let's back up, because unknown to the killers and the deputies at this point, there were 4 witnesses to the shooting.
Well, I would hope, Megan, since the entire community came out of their houses to watch
but I'm
them.
talking about at the river when they actually got taken to the river.
Okay, so people
and
in the neighborhood
basically.
still aren't talking.
Right.
Okay, so this
Up until this point, yeah.
Wow, the loyalty.
I know.
Okay,
So unknown to the shooters, and because remember they drive the deputies down to the Trinity River and make them get out of the car and just start shooting them. There was 4 witnesses to this.
Wow.
So let's go through that. Taylor Gates, Louise Hannah, Larry Hamilton, and Charles Pratt Jr. all lived in South Dallas and worked together at Patterson Construction Company in Irving, Texas. They would frequently carpool together to and from work, and they all considered each other best friends. On Monday, February 15th, 1971, they all got into Taylor Gates' truck to make their way back home from a long day at work. Sometimes the group would take the shortcut through the Trinity River bottom to avoid traffic. And this was one of those evenings. They were driving eastbound along that dirt road on the north side of the river to eventually get onto the Westmoreland Road. It was later in the day, but still light enough to see, when Charles stated that he saw something strange. They all observed a white Plymouth with a long antenna traveling westbound on the dirt road. The Plymouth then stopped, and 2 Hispanic men exit the car, and then 5 more men in suits got out and stood on the left side of the car. Then suddenly, the 2 Hispanic men begin shooting at the 5 men in suits. Taylor stops his truck, and they watch in horror as this all unfolds in front of them. In their statement, the men said that they saw the 2 killers shooting handguns at the men wearing suits, and then they observed the 2 gunmen chase one of the men, who was wearing a suit, over the riverbank and then disappear. And after a couple of minutes, the 2 killers came back up the bank, but the man that was in the suit did not come back up with them. So they all see this unfold, and this is back in 1971, so there's no phone, no nothing. And so Taylor and them end up driving past the men all the way to the Westmoreland Road. He stops his truck and told the other 3 men, because they see that the 2 Hispanic men are getting back into the Plymouth. Taylor and them drive past, and they pull over, and Taylor tells his friends to get the license plate number of the Plymouth. And then he gets out and pops the hood of his trunk. Taylor does, and pretends he's working on his truck.
Wow.
Yeah. So the gunmen drive out of the river bottom right past them. And Charles stated in a statement to the police that they came within 30 yards of them, and his friends looked over at them and then turned right onto Westmoreland and headed southbound on Westmoreland. Taylor closes his hood and decides to follow them.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like a just little hometown hero right
little
here.
sleuths here.
Yeah, we got him. Okay.
After a short distance, they lost sight of the white car and theorized that it must have turned onto Canada Drive, but they didn't know which direction it had taken. As they reached the intersection where they could see both directions of Canada Drive, they spotted the white car traveling west. And so Taylor went past Canada Drive, drove a block down to Burnell Drive, and turned right, where he let Larry Hamilton out to find a telephone to call the police.
Wow.
The other 3 men continued westbound on Burnell Street in search of the white Plymouth again. In a minute, they see the 2 killers walking westbound on Burnell, but they had abandoned the Plymouth and were on foot at this point. Taylor drove west a few more blocks, but the men didn't pass the killers again. After waiting a few minutes, Taylor and the others went back to the police station on Westmoreland and reported the whole incident. They gave the police excellent descriptions of the gunmen, but the identity of both the killers was still unknown to them. Taylor and his friends took a police officer back to the scene of the shooting, but discovered that other police officers were there already, arriving on scene. Okay, so let's back up again. So now back to Deputy McCurley in Dover. Dover was helped into the vehicle by McCurley and another patrol officer, L.D. Martz, who had picked up McCurley at a gas station after McCurley had made it there and called dispatch to report the crime.
Okay, I'm sorry, real quick. I know Dover was shot. Was McCurley shot too?
No,
I
so
couldn't remember.
McCurley, if you remember back, McCurley is the one that took a few steps back and he couldn't swim. He falls down the riverbank, hits a tree. His hands become untied because of that impact, and he just takes off running down the riverbank. He stops for a second because Lopez, one of the killers, McCurley sees Lopez, and Lopez, it was getting dark at this point and couldn't see because of all the brush.
Yes.
And then McCurley continued on and got to Westmoreland Road.
Okay.
So when he got onto Westmoreland Road is when he got to the gas station. Okay. So once Dover was in the car with the other officers, and despite his gunshot wound, he took them to where the other deputies were laying. And so we have to remember that Dover had been shot, like, I'm pretty sure, I think I'll say it here in a second, like twice or three times in the chest.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there's that. He was in the car, and despite his gunshot wounds, he took them back to where the deputies were lying. He then got into another patrol car and was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital for treatment. McCurley was very upset and kept just telling arriving officers, they got my gun, they got my gun, they got my gun. So he's in shock.
Yes.
He can't process things correctly right now. Other officers on scene, seeing McCurley's distress, ended up just giving him one of their shotguns so he could just hold a gun, because they knew he felt like extremely helpless and, just, I'm sure, just absolutely unraveling. And he was just unraveling in front of them. And so they just handed him a shotgun. I'm not sure. It doesn't say if it was loaded or not, but I'm sure that made him feel a little bit better, which it did. They said that McCurley calmed down and was able to answer questions clearly at that point. At approximately 7:45 p.m., homicide detectives I'm not sure which, back in the 70s and stuff, and even into the 60s, you always see that men's names were just like their
initials.
Yeah. And it's so funny. So W.E. Potts and H.M. Moore visited Dover at the hospital while he was being treated. There they showed him a lineup of photos, and one of the photos being Rene Guzman, one of the killers. Dover was able to positively identify Guzman, but Lopez is still unidentified at this time. Back at the scene on the banks of the Trinity, McCurley stayed and answered all the questions he could until around 6:45 p.m. And then he left, heading back to the Dallas Sheriff's Office. Less than an hour after he had arrived with Reese at the houses at the Ingersoll house. So that's just showing you how fast all this unraveled. So he answers questions there at the river until about 6:45, and then he left to go back to the office. And that was less than an hour after he even arrived at the house with Reese, his deputy, or his partner. McCurley made a stop at the house on Ingersoll on the way back to the station to answer any of the questions from the officers investigating the crime there at the scene.
I know they want him because they want all this information fresh, but oh my God, the trauma this guy was trying to work through.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
He just lost, friends on the force and partners. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he's back to the scene of where it all happened to answer questions like immediately.
Yeah.
That's
trauma.
I can't even imagine what that was like.
And that's not like your typical victim, right? Your typical victim is somebody that probably would never go back to that house again.
Correct. You're going to take them to an interrogation room and you're going to interview them. And that's not what they did.
Yeah. Insane. So now let's talk about the killers. Guzman and Lopez. So back in part one, we just meet them as they're burglarizing a house. And then we meet them when they disarm the deputies and ultimately, assassinate a few of them. So let's talk about them. Guzman and Lopez, they had actually only met a few days prior to the murders.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. New acquaintances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Insane. They met at a bar in East Dallas and quickly became friends when they discovered they both had a mutual habit of heroin and burglarizing. What a good way to bond.
You know what? We always ask, though, how do these people find each other?
Yeah.
And then they did. They just naturally found each other in a bar.
We're like, hey, you like heroin? I do. Do you like to rob people? I do. Then let's become friends.
Besties for life.
Insane. It just reminds me of that scene in freaking, that movie with Will Ferrell in it. Did we just become best? Oh, Step Brothers.
Oh,
yeah. Did we just become best friends?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, freaking crazy. So, they did heroin and burglarized together. So Guzman in particular was a very dominant individual, which you can very much see that in this case. And Lopez was a follower. A lot of people in the neighborhood at the Ingersoll address knew Guzman, but since Lopez was a new acquaintance, they had no idea who he was, except that guy who hangs out with Renee.
For 3 days.
Right. So going back to when Guzman and Lopez abandoned the Plymouth, they walked to 3927 Weisenberger, where one of Guzman's half-sisters lived. Both killers burst into the door where Aurora Flores Garcia and her husband Pablo Garcia live, only a few blocks away from the house on Ingersoll. Aurora recognized her half-brother immediately, but did not know Lopez except by face. Aurora and Pablo both saw that Guzman had a gun in his belt, as well as Lopez, and this really put them on the edge, and they knew something was very wrong. So Aurora questioned this, and Guzman caught his breath and finally stated, "We just shot 3 policemen and another one got away."
Just totally owned up to it.
And for whatever reason, his count of the deputies was off by 1, because it was actually, it was 5 total. And so he said 3 policemen and 1 got away. Well, no. And that just goes to show you, we're not dealing with the sharpest.
Well, just how chaotic it was.
Yeah.
He didn't even take time to realize how many hostages he had.
Crazy. Then Guzman ordered Aurora to take them to East Dallas to an apartment located on 2102 North Carroll Street, where Lopez had been staying. So Guzman and Lopez get into Aurora's trunk of her 1965 white Chevrolet, and she begins driving. She automatically noticed that the neighborhood was swarming with police officers at this point. She drove slowly through them all, trying not to raise any suspicion. As she was driving eastbound on Canada Drive, an officer standing in the roadway motions for her to stop. And her heart sinks, and she assumes they've been caught. Guzman and Lopez could hear the police officer speaking with Aurora, and each of them had their handguns in their hand out and ready for what they thought was about to be another gunfight.
Oh my God.
Insane. But the officer accepted whatever story Aurora gives and motions for her to drive through.
Wow.
Crazy.
You know, I know we don't want to
see. And you're going to see this over and over again. Like they just got lucky there in the beginning.
I was going to say, we don't want to see them get away, but we also don't want to see any more innocent people shot.
Exactly. Yeah. So she gets to the apartment in East Dallas and lets the killers out, and she goes to the car wash and then back home. At the apartment, the men meet up with their girlfriends, Angie Rojo Hernandez. I know.
Girls, we've got to raise the bar.
Ladies.
Ladies, let's raise the bar, okay?
Yeah. So, one is named Angie Rojo Hernandez, and the other is Mary Alice Rosales Martinez. They were unaware of what happened, but they would quickly be roped into this insane story. As police interviewed as many people as possible, a third suspect was identified in the murders, Guzman's brother, Moses Guzman. Moses was the man who knocked on the door while the deputies were being held at the Ingersoll house. So if you remember back, we randomly, while the deputies were being held hostage at the Ingersoll house, there was a random knock at the door, and they opened it, and this other Hispanic male walks in and then backs out.
Yes.
Like, oh crap.
Yeah,
and just
I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. So that was Moses Guzman. That was Guzman's brother.
Wow.
Moses had been there for about 5 weeks, had been living back at that house. He observed Renee. And so Renee, I'm going to start mentioning, I think, first name, because now we have 2 Guzmans.
Oh, okay.
So Renee, the killer, Renee's friend, and 5 deputies driving away from the house. He knew full well what was about to happen, and that Renee and his friend had stolen property in the house on the Ingersoll. And so what's Moses do? So Moses sees them drive away, sees them walk these 5 deputies with their hands tied behind their back in the car and drive away. And what's Moses do? He goes into the house and he gets the stolen property that they knew at the beginning of this whole story. Renee and Lopez had stolen. He goes and gets that and then takes the Ford, the car that started all this as well, and takes all of it, trying to help his brother out. So he removes
all the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
wow. So he's like, I don't want to be a part of whatever this is with the 5 deputies, but I'll dispose of all the evidence.
Yeah. Okay. So, because Moses was aware that that Lopez and Renee had burglarized a house prior to all of this, and it was in that car, and so he knew what was up. So back to the car, that Ford, because remember at the very beginning, it was registered to this Joe Sanchez Benitez. Yeah. So Renee had actually purchased the vehicle from a family friend named Joe Sanchez Benitez, but had not changed the registration to his name yet.
Are we shocked?
Yeah.
Are we surprised?
So Moses decides to remove all these items and take the car to try and freaking help his brother out. He drove this to his half-sister's home at 3927 Wesenberger. So back to Aurora's house. Poor Aurora. I mean, I say that, but I mean, damn. So
she was probably very afraid.
Oh, yeah. It'll say that later for sure. So now Moses is pulling up in this Ford with all the stolen shit in it back to Aurora's house. Aurora has just left to take Renee and Lopez to that apartment. And so he pulls up and he found Pablo, his brother-in-law, Garcia. And Moses asked Pablo for his help moving the stolen items to another location. And Pablo agrees. Moses and Pablo load the stolen items into Renee's Ford. So I'm reading through this. What I'm thinking has happened. He takes some of the items and puts them in the Ford, drives to Aurora and Pablo's house. And then Moses tells Pablo, there's a bunch of stolen crap back at the Ingersoll house. I need you to come help me load it up and we need to take it somewhere. And Pablo's like, sure, I'll go. So they go back to the Ingersoll house. They load the stuff back into the Ford and then they drive it to an unknown address on Kings Road in the Oak Lawn section of Dallas. They then drove to an intersection at Leith and Abilene where they just abandoned the car and then walked back to Pablo and Aurora's car, our house.
So they abandoned the car and all the stolen items just on the side of the road. Just like let it go.
Is that not insane?
It was clearly worth stealing, I guess.
And it's just mind-boggling to me, like all the people that just decided to either 1, look the other way, or 2, actually help these killers. It's mind-boggling to me. So,
well,
yeah. Back at the scene, arriving officers and detectives realized the stolen items that McCurley had told them were there in the house on Ingersoll were no longer there. So the officers are like, okay, what the heck is going on? Crime scene detectives started to process the house for any evidence and take photographs. They recovered the wallets of all the deputies, Robertson, Infante, and Dover, from the living room. As they interviewed more people, including Renee Guzman's mother and stepfather, they learned of the half-sister Aurora. Officers then go to the Weisenberger house where they find Moses Guzman and arrest him for murder, believing that he and Renee were the 2 shooters. So right now the officers think that Moses is the second guy. But when officers showed Moses Guzman to McCurley told him that Moses was not the shooter, but he was the man who came to the front door of the house while the deputies were tied up. Because Moses did not report the crime and did nothing to help despite knowing what was going to happen, he was still held on the murder charges pending a grand jury investigation. Thank God.
Yes.
The police were unhappy to learn that both shooters were still at large. So a few days passed with tips flooding in, and one of the largest manhunts in Dallas County continued. The slain deputies were all laid to rest, and as each funeral ended, all officers returned to duty to hunt for the killers. So during this hideout, these past few days at the apartment where Lopez and Guzman are, along with their girlfriends, the killers begin needing a heroin fix. Because, of course, you're a heroin addict.
I mean,
you got to get some eventually.
Right.
After watching the news, Rene Guzman knew he had been identified. So ideas for what to do start to get tossed around as they formed an escape plan. Rene Guzman finally decided that they would have to move to a new apartment. He told the girls to find another apartment quickly and return to pick them up. So listen to this. Lopez gives Mary $20 and she already had $14.50. And the two women then walk to a location nearby and borrow a car from a friend. They drive the vehicle to a structure of small apartments that had been converted from a house and a garage at 4627 San Juanito Street. They located the manager of the apartments and knock on the door. And the manager, her name was Miss Vivian Curtis, told them that she had apartment 4 available, located on the side of the apartment building, for $28.50 per week. So the women agreed and paid her the rent, and Miss Curtis gave them the keys.
$28.50 a week?
Yeah. This was back in the 70s.
Oh, I'm okay.
It's okay. Anyways, so the women go back to retrieve Guzman and Lopez and sneak to the new apartment. Now they had successfully gotten a new apartment, and the next line of business was to find some heroin. At this point, I'm kind of bouncing around, and I hope everybody's able to keep up, but there's just so many POVs, if you will, to this story. So I'm trying to keep us all in one steady timeline. So at this point, police had arrested Guzman's half-sister, Aurora, and she was being questioned. Aurora admitted that she had taken the suspects to 2102 North Carroll and dropped them off. In a sworn statement, she stated that both men were armed with pistols and she was afraid for her and her children's safety if she did not comply with Guzman's orders, which I don't blame her. Ultimately, she was released and police swarmed the apartment at 2102 North Carroll. But by this point, Guzman and Lopez were long gone.
Right.
They had gotten the new apartment. See, by what I mean, though, it's just like luck just kind of keeps falling on their side here for a second. Guzman and Lopez had decided to use the guns that they had because they were still in possession of McCurley's .45 and Reese's 9mm. They were going to sell them for some heroin. Which reminds you, McCurley's .45 was that one that
the specialty
Decker,
one,
yeah, Deputy Decker, or what? Forgot what his official title was, but it was a very special gun to him. So Federico Freddy Velguez. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Was a well-known drug dealer and had recently sold to an undercover police officer. The detectives working the case now knew that Guzman had a major heroin addiction and would need to be getting a fix pretty soon. Undercover police had also heard through the grapevine that 2 of the deputies' weapons had been sold for some heroin. They learned that Freddie was one of the dealers that sold the killer's heroin. And so all these undercover officers are feeding all this information to the detectives. They go out and arrest Freddie for the previous selling of the undercover cop. So they just had that in their back pocket, luckily. And so they take him in and question him. With the threat of a life sentence for selling heroin to an undercover officer hanging over his head, he finally tells officers he can show them where the killers are hiding out. Freddie led them to the garage apartments at 4627 San Juanito Street. He pointed out to the rear apartment number 5.
What?
Yeah.
One number off?
That is not the right apartment. And we don't know if he did this intentionally or by mistake. But anyways, he stated that Rene Guzman and the other suspect, whom he knew as Jose Lopez, were inside. It is unknown whether he intentionally pointed it out or he did this by mistake, like I said. But this small mistake would lead to an almost deadly consequence. On Thursday, February 18th, around noon, police officers surround the back part of apartment number 5. Deputies knock on the door several times and yell out to open the door. Officers yelled out in Spanish as well to open up. After a few moments, 2 gunshots were heard inside of the apartment. The sounds of multiple officers screaming to drop your weapons were heard, and then absolute chaos erupted. Around 30 officers started to fire at the apartment. Captain Dixon was on scene, and he was finally able to get the men to cease firing, but crime scene detectives later counted a total of 92 bullet holes in the apartment.
Oh my, into the wrong apartment.
Yeah. When officers made it inside the apartment, they disarm a Hispanic man who was found to be shot in his shoulder. His name was Thomas Rodriguez. His wife had also been struck with a bullet in the right leg. The couple also had around 8 children in the apartment as well, but by some miracle, none of the children were harmed. Unfortunately, the police soon realized that it was the wrong apartment, and morale on the scene sank to their butts. They had no way of knowing that they were standing just feet away from the fugitives, and their bad luck was about to change. But to back up a little bit, I did want to mention this. Thomas Rodriguez played a small part in the covering up of
the whole scenario.
Of where Lopez and Guzman were hiding. I can't remember specifically, but that's why he basically had a gun in his apartment and was ready to go down shooting with these officers. Because typically, if you have 30 officers, if you have 30 officers coming into your apartment, you're not going to shoot 2 rounds. So I'm not saying it was a horrible mistake, but I'm not saying he was totally innocent. He did play a small part. So if you want to read the book, if you want to know all those little details. Anyways, okay. So while officers are standing in the apartment's parking area, preparing to leave with their heads hung low, an unidentified woman emerges from another apartment. She approaches the officers and points to apartment 4 and said, "The men you are looking for are in there."
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, random unidentified lady.
Yes.
The officers go up to apartment 4 and knock. Mary Martinez answers the door, and Detective Gus Rose asked if anyone else was inside. She said only her friend Angie Hernandez was. The officers inquired if there were any men inside, and Martinez said no. Angie Hernandez then comes to the door belligerently, so I'm assuming she's under the influence of something, telling them that no one was there and they need to leave. But then Angie just walks back into the apartment. When Mary looks up to the officers and quietly says, "They are here. They are going to shoot. Get me out of here."
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
She was scared too.
I can only imagine. So one of the officers grabs Mary and pulls her outside of the doorway, and then 4 officers step inside with their guns drawn. Lopez and Guzman were hiding in the bathroom behind the shower curtain, but they finally were arrested without much incident.
Good.
Crazy. So 2 guns were recovered from the bathroom, a .32 revolver, presumably the one that Guzman used to get the drop on the deputies in the first place, and a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver that was Deputies Infante's duty weapon. The killers were led out of the apartment just in time for McCurley to drive up and positively ID both suspects. That had to felt so good for McCurley too. The suspects were immediately taken to Dallas County Courthouse. They were brought before Judge Tom Naylor and arraigned on charges of murder. After the arrest, Lopez gave police a signed statement describing how the incident occurred. Dallas Police Detective Rose sat down with Renee Guzman, who was mostly calm, and after a brief exchange, Guzman agreed to give a statement. In his confession, he took the blame for the entire incident. He did not exclude Lopez, but he stated that none of his family members had any involvement in the crime. A few days later, on February 23rd, Dallas Police Detective Joe Poe.
Joe Poe. Come on, Joe
I read that and I was like, Joe Poe. Interviewed Leonardo Lopez. Lopez's confession was similar to Guzman's at the beginning. When he reached the part where the two men shot the deputies, however, Lopez states that the young officer, referring to Donnie Reese, had wrestled a gun from Guzman and was shooting at them. He said that Reese missed with all the rounds and began running away, and that's when Lopez chased him down and shot him. No, sir. The autopsy reports alone that was done on Reese negates this account. A quote from Lopez's statement says, quote, "I just shot each one of them one time," end quote.
Sir, you don't even know how many you had.
Can you count to 5?
You don't even know how many you had.
I put eye roll. In March of 1971, a Dallas grand jury returned murder indictments against Guzman and Lopez for the murders of deputies Reese, Infante, and Robertson. The cases were assigned to Judge R.T. Scales in the 195th Judicial District Court of Dallas County. Judge Scales was a seasoned judge who tried many high-profile cases during his career. Defense attorneys for Guzman and Lopez filed a motion to transfer the trials from Dallas, claiming the intense media coverage would prevent their clients from having a fair trial. Judge Scales did agree and granted the motion on May 12, 1971, and moved the trials to Belton, Bell County, Texas. The lead prosecutor on the case was Assistant DA Doug Mulder. Doug, having served in the district attorney's office for several years, was specifically selected by the office to lead the prosecution. His track record and legal winnings earned him a reputation as one of the best, if not the best, prosecutors in Dallas history. From the beginning, the DA's office chose to ask for the death penalty in this case. On Monday, June 28th, 1971, testimony begins. The state would call a total of 13 witnesses, and the defense called no witnesses, which I thought was pretty. You don't really hear about that often, I don't think, of the defense not calling one single witness. And so the trial only lasted 2 days, and the jury quickly returned guilty verdicts for both defendants. Now the punishment phase was underway and almost complete. But in the last few minutes, an otherwise flawless trial, District Attorney Henry Wade decided to give some closing arguments. In one of his statements to the jury, he said, quote, "I'm concerned about the open season that is coming on police officers. I believe the same week these officers were killed, there were 11 killed in America," end quote, which, good God, if only. I wonder how many are now. I should have looked that up in 2026. Mr. Metcalf, one of Guzman's attorneys, objected and told the judge that the statement was outside the record. Judge Scales sustained the objection and asked the jury to disregard the statement, but Metcalf pressed the issue and requested a mistrial on the grounds that the statement was prejudicial. Judge Scales overruled that objection. In about an hour, the jury returned with a sentence of death for both defendants. When the trial ended, the defendants were transported back to Dallas County Jail. Deputy Johnny Webb was tasked with driving Guzman back to Dallas. During the drive, Webb asked Guzman what he thought about the trial, and Guzman responded by saying, "Oh, I don't believe they're going to execute me. I will kill at least one more cop before I'm done. Not you, though, Mr. Webb. You're a nice guy. I would never kill you."
No. Quote. Oh my
quote, end
God.
Quote. Is that not crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a little backstory on Guzman, a little insight into Guzman's mentality there.
Wow.
A case that happened in Georgia. So now we're going to, this case, just these details just blew me away. So a case that happened in Georgia in 1968 of a man who was sentenced to death for shooting and killing a man who burglarized his home was appealed and eventually overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. So this man,
protecting his home,
shot and killed the burglar that was intruding into his home, killed the burglar, but he was charged with murder and was sentenced to death because of this. This decision was then overturned, obviously, by the U.S. Supreme Court, but this decision overturned the death penalty for every death row prisoner in the United States on June 29th, 1972.
What?
And if you're a crime person, this happened. And so a lot of the death row inmates got basically kind of put on hold. This was a big deal back in the 70s. While laws and cases were being reviewed in Texas, Guzman and Lopez's death penalties were permanently set aside. They both appealed their cases to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals on October 24th, 1973. The Texas Appeals Court threw out their convictions entirely, largely based on Mr. Wade's closing arguments at the end of the trial. What the hell?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
Who gives a shit what he said? Is that not insane? They killed, it just blew me away. They executed.
Right.
The police officers.
3 officers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we
and
know
it was
of.
witnessed. It was witnessed by 4 guys. It's insane to me. Anyways, the Dallas County District Attorney's Office decided to retry the defendants. These trials were again held in Bell County and presided again by Judge Scales again. They were once again convicted, but given life sentences this time instead of the death penalty.
At least they'll never get out. Fine. I'll take it.
But everybody hold your breath. Once again, they appealed their convictions, but the court denied their rehearing. The killers came up for parole review every year. Initially, they were constantly rejected. In the 1970s,
Megan.
listen.
Megan.
In the 1970s, prison overcrowding became a rapidly growing problem. A class action lawsuit that was filed by a group of prisoners in 1972 against the Texas Department of Correction was won in 1979 after a long drawn-out trial. Due to this, parole boards started approving parole requests on an unprecedented level. Releasing 150 prisoners per day at one point.
Whoa.
Terrifying.
What are we doing?
Absolutely terrifying. I can't even wrap my head around that. It was not widely publicized, so it came as a shock when it was learned that Leonardo Lopez was granted parole to Harris County on December 18th, 1990. This became a public outrage after this big secret was out. Some people assumed that he would quickly violate parole, though, and go back into prison, but they were wrong. By 2006, he was still out and had relocated to Lubbock, Texas. So I know everybody, just bear with me. Rewinding a bit back to December 8th, 1995, a Lubbock patrol officer stopped and arrested Lopez for a DUI. The officer had no prior knowledge of the prisoner's identity, and Lopez was just placed in jail for DUI and then was released. Later, listen to this. This is insane. Later, Chief Ken Walker overheard the arresting officer discussing the arrest. This was later. Walker immediately recognizes the name because you see, back in 1971, when Lopez and Guzman were in Dallas County Jail awaiting trial, Ken Walker was a college student working as a jailer there during the summer. Ken slowly worked his way up in law enforcement and was now the chief of police in Lubbock, Texas.
Wow.
When Ken recognized the name, the officer said he double-checked the mugshot to be sure, and it was him. Lopez had already been released at this point, so Ken begins the process to revoke his parole. It took until 2007 to accomplish this. He notified the Texas Prison System's Inspector General and requested the inspector's help in returning Lopez to prison. Officials were finally able to return Lopez to prison on February 20th, 2007, after 17 years of freedom. Lopez never left prison again, and he died in Texas prison unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas on August 6, 2017 of a cirrhosis of the liver and congestive heart failure.
Goodbye.
Guzman, who remained in prison, died in the summer of 2021, and I couldn't figure out what he died from. Deputy McCurley remained in law enforcement. He stayed with the Dallas County Sheriff's Department for his entire career, eventually rising to the rank of captain in his criminal division, and he passed away in 2001. Deputy Dover finally recovered from his severe gunshot wounds to his chest and later transitioned away from the Sheriff's Department and worked as a detective for the Ennis Police Department, and he passed away in 2005. A monument stands today honoring the fallen officers of the Trinity River Massacre. I had no idea about
Really?
this.
Where is it? Is it in Ennis?
It's located at the Founders Plaza in downtown Dallas, and the inscribed names of Deputy Samuel Infante, Deputy William Donnie Reese, and Deputy Arthur Robertson can be seen and remembered there.
Wow.
And that is the story of the Trinity River Massacre.
That is insane. And the fact that they were just like, let go.
Insane. There's so many more details too. The book is crazy. If you want to know more about this case, that book I highly recommend. It's very, very detailed, very factual. It's just insane. So,
wow.
Yeah. But there you have it. I can't believe this hadn't been made into a movie.
Well, I'm glad they both died in prison.
Yeah.
I'm at least glad they both.
Yeah, and that twist at the end about Ken Walker, Chief Ken Walker.
Yes.
Years later, all the way in Lubbock.
Mm-hmm.
And he just happened to overhear somebody talk about arresting Lopez. Right. And he's like, wait a minute. He's out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact he killed 3 officers.
Right.
Is that, it's just so crazy.
Well, thank you, Megan.
You're welcome, everyone. You are welcome. Case closed. So come back.
Like, subscribe, and share on all of our socials.
Yep. If you have a story or anything, if you want to say what's up, email us at inlawsandcrime@gmail.com. And also, please keep rate and reviewing us. It really, really helps us. So if you're listening right now on Apple or Spotify, when you're done with this episode, just give us a rate and review.
A good one.
You don't even have to give us a review. Just rate us.
5 stars.
5 stars.
Only.
4 or 5. That'd be great. It really helps us out. So thank you. And then thank you for all the comments and everything. Yeah. And keep your roots deep
and your head on a swivel.
Bye.